Hello there. My name is Dr. Jose Aguinaga. I am assistant professor with the School of Information here at San Jose State, and I'll be sharing with you my overview of Module 5 and also provide additional scholarship regarding this fabulous module. So, with Module 5, Information Communities and Diverse Information Needs, let's see what I'll be talking about. So, the five main areas. I'll start with information needs by Naumer and Fisher, then move on to everyday life information seeking that Savolanian discussed, and then also human information behavior that Spink and Cole contributed to. Last but not least, developing cultural competence by Dr. Nicole Cook, and that's an excellent contribution. And last, by Dr. Kawana Bright, Equity of Access, Diversity, and Inclusion. I will be sharing my insights, but also wanted to share another personal note about myself as a first-generation Latino who has gone through the spectrum of higher education and now teaching at a university level. It is my honor to be sharing this wonderful scholarship with you. So let's get started with information needs. So based on what you've read, you may have encountered a few interesting elements in how these two scholars, Naumer and Fisher, they give us an overview of the definition of this term, information needs, and how it has evolved over time. It is quite interesting that they also preface this by indicating that it's a multidisciplinary approach, because in other disciplines, whether it's economics, psychology, political science, and I would even say sociology, it has really given us additional guidance and input as to what kind of definition should emerge regarding information needs. Now, the way they state in their own contribution, information needs is related to human needs. Can you imagine that? What we all need: access to that information, how we disseminate that information, how we process that information. And that is very helpful to get a better understanding. Another way that I like to describe information needs would be, think of it as an amoeba, in that there is no defined shape to it. It evolves. It evolves depending on the stimuli, but also the environment factors that are out there. So our needs for information evolve depending on the situation and the circumstances that we all deal with. The other aspect about the term information needs would be that in the era of how this has evolved, there are other things that have contributed to the changes that are taking place with information needs, such as the evolution of the internet. Can you imagine? When I was in library school, that's when the internet was becoming available to the public. And seeing the evolution since then has really been transitional in many ways, but also the present evolution of artificial intelligence, whether it's generative artificial intelligence or other means of AI, it continues to evolve how we seek that information and how we need that information. And this also leads us to our second category regarding information needs. And the other slide here, getting a better understanding that both Naumer and Fisher provide. These questions give us a good indicator as to how do we understand information needs. There's various points that are illustrated here. I will not read the entire slide to you, but you can take a look at it and to remind yourself about what they contributed with their contribution. And now let's move on to our second category by Savolanian, Everyday Life Information Seeking. What Savolanian, excellent scholar and researcher, he provides us with a very systematic but also understandable way of how the information seeking process has evolved with humans. He defines it as a two-prong approach. It's either job related or it's non-work. In other words, when we're at home, when we're enjoying life, how we interact with that need for information. It's very evolutionary, but it also provides us more in-depth analysis as to how we go about it what he has provided in his paper are excellent models, and I would once again encourage you to take a look at the diagrams that he has provided to see the evolution of it and how it continues to evolve. It's interesting that he points out in his contribution, one information needed in the past, say in the 20th century, was having a newspaper. That is not the case anymore, because our information need is literally in the palm of our hand with our cell phone or tablet. And we have many avenues to gain access to information. Now, the one caution would be there's disinformation and misinformation that continues to grow, as you might imagine. So what Savolainen has provided is a good foundation regarding everyday life information-seeking behaviors and how we as humans continue to process and digest that information. Next, we have human information behavior that Spink and Cole discuss in their contribution. What they have provided is integrating a diverse approach to using information, but also seeking that information, whether it's in our everyday life. Once again, connecting that with Savolainen's contribution, but how do we process that when we are at work? How do we process information when we are at home and away from work? How do we process that information? How do we digest that information? And how do we disseminate that info? They provide 3 key points in that they just talk about everyday life, but they also talk about how we browse for information. Now, I would say to myself that I'm guilty of that. I get on a search engine, whichever search engine it is, and I just might type some key terms and I just browse through the results. That's one way of going at it. But also developing the problem solution approach to receiving the information, digesting the information, and using that information in a useful manner. That's another way. And being in the academy, I consider all of you scholars, we are doing that in our daily lives as we continue to read other scholarship that's out there and we start writing our own contributions. The other aspect would be that what Spink and Cole share with us, that it's a human information condition for us to seek, process, and disseminate that info. But also, another way of looking at it with the umbrella approach would be it's a holistic approach for human information behavior. Holistic, I mean, we encompass everything and then we separate elements in order to what we need, and we will use that info as needed for our daily life. So that's their contribution. Next, we have developing cultural competence. And I imagine most of you were, I hope, gain some additional insights as to what Professor and Dr. Nicole Cook contributed. She's an outstanding scholar, and she has contributed quite well in our LIS field regarding many aspects of cultural competence, but also diversity, inclusion, and equity. In her discussion, she brings up the point that what are we doing in our own practice? In other words, what do we do in our daily lives regarding these elements of cultural competence? She indicates it's a multi-step endeavor. And the one thing that that struck a nerve in me, she talks about critical self-reflection. That is our first step. We must step back and process who we are, what are we doing? Are we fulfilling the elements of cultural competence? And that's something that many of us have to work on a daily basis. And that ties in with our information professional career that we are seeking. So if I go into the definition that is shared here by, she quotes Patricia Ovaral regarding cultural competence, that gives us a better understanding. And you can read that at your leisure. But also the intersectionality that Cook provides in her discussion of this topic with us, how it intersects with other elements of our life. And I like to illustrate that by moving forward to this illustration that Cook has provided for us. She calls it the multicultural you. And as we see here on this screen, the elements that are associated with this, we have various facets that contribute to who we are as an individual, as a human, and how we strive to fulfill our cultural competence. The one element that she discusses is that if not just ourselves, we fulfill these elements, but our libraries, where we work, our information centers, if we're able to do that, we are providing a service that is well worth it for our users. They may be free in a diverse community, but have diverse backgrounds. And the other element that Cook also provides for us, the aspect of cultural humility. And some of us may overlook that at times, even myself. You got to remain humble, but you also got to be aware of who you are, what you've developed, and how you can enhance what you're developing, in what you're seeking and doing in your everyday life, but also as a future information professional. The one thing I like to quote from Cook, she, at the end of her chapter, she talks about 3 points that Sandra Rios Valderrama provides for us. One, we should be interested in learning from and with people from other cultures. 2, self-assess our own cultural values and consider how we obtain them. And 3, grow our competency level from awareness to knowledge to experience. Let's not just do the talking, but actually do the work, but then learn from that experience where we combine everything and how we can continue to refine our cultural competence, because it's not a one-time effort. It's an evolving effort until we're no longer on this planet. So those are some aspects of what they've contributed and what Cook contributed with this wonderful chapter that I strongly encourage you to maybe save it on your own device for future reference. So we move on, and our last wonderful scholar, Kawana Bright, regarding equity of access, diversity, and inclusion. Dr. Bright, also a wonderful scholar, provides in-depth analysis regarding the term of equity, diversity, and inclusion, but also points out how we use it in information services, in information science, library science, and how the organization must also strive for the best, not just the individual as a librarian or library staff, but as an organization, as a holistic organization. How are we contributing to fulfill the diverse needs of the community and of our users? What kind of programming are we providing that ties in and community members can relate to and can say, hey, I'm going to the library because they know who I am. They know who we are. That's something to keep in mind. Other aspects would be that diversity is defined in many aspects regarding age, socioeconomic background, sexual orientation, religion, etc. But it will continue to evolve because as we are continuing to grow, and the one thing I bring up to mind is what happened since March of 2020. Many things evolved: sociological, political, economic, and health. Those elements trigger different changes in how we are as individuals and how we are trying to refine ourselves in fulfilling the needs of humans, but also their information needs in our profession as librarians, information professionals. So there are various aspects that Kawana Bright brings forth in her contribution. Another aspect would be the last aspect. She talks about a cultural competence continuum. And this aspect brings up, once again, the concept of cultural humility. We got to remind ourselves, stressing that. And this is where I like to bring up another scholar or two other scholars from my own higher education research. Solórzano and Yoso from UCLA. They are two highly distinguished scholars that have published extensively on the concept of counter storytelling. What that means, if you haven't heard that term, bringing up the voice of the marginalized folks that will share their own story and their own words and contribute that within the scholarship, within the academy. There are many scholars in the field, primarily in education, but there might be some too in library science. So I would encourage you to delve into that when you have some time. All these elements fulfill our richness as information professionals, but also, as I move forward here, tie in with what Fisher and Fulton remind us of regarding information communities. The 5 bullets, as listed here, tie in with what Module 5 is professing for you, but also teaching us and reminding us who we are and what we need to do as future MLIS graduates, but also members of our communities where we live. So it's needless to say, it's an ongoing evolution. It's an ongoing process. But another reminder before I conclude, what I've been sharing today can help out with your future competency J for your e-portfolio. When you get to that point in your time with San Jose State, with the iSchool, this could be one element that you may want to take a look at and proceed from there. So one other thing I wanted to throw out to you, and I'm going to sort of challenge you, just something to ponder on, think about. Think about one cultural challenge your information community may face. And then, how does this impact their information needs? Something to ponder. And as you continue to take your courses, you may see additional answers to this that may assist you in your development as an information professional, as a future librarian. And last but not least, I want to thank you. Gracias, merci, grazie. Yes, those are some of the languages that I know, but also, once again, thank you for listening. And if you're interested in learning more from the courses that I teach Info 210, Reference and Information Services, and the other course would be Information 230, Issues in Academic Libraries. I may have not mentioned this, but before joining the iSchool at San Jose State, for 28 years, I was an academic librarian at university libraries, and the last 17 years with community colleges, primarily in Arizona. So I've seen the gamut of higher education from all levels. I've had many experiences. If you care to know more, feel free to take one of these 2 courses, Info 210 and Info 230. I want to wish you the best, and thank you for your time.